Inflation, it seems like it's everywhere. In today's short video, we're going to explain a little bit about inflation, what it is, why it's bad, and some simple steps that we can take to perhaps mitigate some of the ill effects of inflation. All right, inflation, what is it? Well, simply put, inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. And we see it all around us. I'll give you a personal example. About a year or two ago, I went and bought my Venti Iced Black Coffee, something I enjoy to splurge every now and then. About a year and a half ago, it was $3.23. Fast forward to about, 4, 5, 6 months ago, went and bought the same coffee. It was $3.73. Now, just yesterday, I went and got that same Venti coffee. It was $4.01. So mind you, this is not some magical brew that the barista is whipping up and putting a lot of attention to. This is a plastic cup, black coffee, poured over ice. $4.01. That, my friends, is inflation. And we are seeing it across the board, whether that be cars, used car prices right now are 45 to 50% over last year's value. We're seeing it in home prices, we're seeing it in medicines, we're seeing it at the grocery store, all of these areas. And what this simply is it's a tax. It's basically taxing us, taking our money, whether it be at the gas pump or what have you, and we don't even get the benefit of a tax deduction for it. So it is an erosion of principle. So let's look historically a little bit about what inflation has done. Everybody remembers the 70s and 80s, the hyperinflation period of that time. Now, no one thinks that we're going to go into that type of inflationary scenario, but we do check off a lot of boxes that were very similar to that era. In the late 60s, the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, rose from 2 to 5%. Here recently, we've rose from 2 to about 5.5%. We were also at that time coming off of the long extended conflict of the Vietnam War. Now what we're seeing is we've just come off that conflict of the Afghanistan war. That was a longer than a decade type conflict. A lot of spending. We had the programs of the Great New Society that Johnson infected in the early to late 60s to early 70s, which was a tremendous good for our economy and people, but it came at a big cost in terms of creating inflationary pressure, because it was a big spending bill on top of the Vietnam War. Now what we've seen is also an increase in entitlements, stimulus checks, things of that nature. All of this tends to make that pot bubble a little bit and create maybe perhaps a little bit of inflation. So what can we do about it? Well, there are many things that you can do about it. One of the things that is going to be very, very important for most individual investors is we have found that most investors out there are slated towards the growth side of the portfolios. The growth stocks, such as the S&P 500 funds, the higher growth things that don't pay much of a dividend. What we found historically during inflationary periods is that sometimes those retained earnings in those type of accounts tend to fare worse in an inflationary environment. Now, mind you, the last 20 to 30 years, growth has done very, very well. And the challenges with an inflationary environment is the cycle can be a little bit longer than what we've seen in the past. So for instance, when we faced some tough markets here recently, the market has come back, and then it's come back relatively quickly. What inflation does, and the reason why inflation is kind of a boogeyman, is that it tends to stay around a while. So it grows very, very slowly and kind of builds on itself. And then all of a sudden, you're caught for 3, 5, 6, 7, and sometimes 10 years in an inflationary environment. All right, what else can you do about it? Well, you can stress test your portfolio now. We encourage all investors to take a look at their portfolio, stress test it against a cycle of inflation. How would you fare? Because this can be somewhat of a difficult environment. You've got asset prices coming down, and you've got the erosion of principal, your purchasing dollar, eroding at the same time. So it can be very unnerving. And it's good to take a good balanced approach to see where you're at now. So with that said, we encourage you, if you haven't done so, to give us a call. We'd be more than happy to stress test your portfolio and perhaps see how you would look if we get into an extended inflationary cycle.